Pei Heng said he disliked me, and he kept saying it for 3 years. He disliked my waist being thick, so I only ate 1 cabbage leaf a day. He disliked my dull speech, so I read scriptures 10 million times. But he was still not satisfied. Until I caught him rolling around with my sister-in-law, I finally understood that all his standards were about Sumioren. In his shame and anger, he gave me medicine and forced me to cover for them. My bridal chamber became their place of debauchery, just because the water temperature was 1 degree cooler when serving. My sister-in-law flew into a rage. Pei Heng cut off my medicine, and I died miserably from the poison. The next time I opened my eyes, I was back on the day I caught the 2 of them in their shameful affair. This time I hitched up my skirt and rushed to my elder brother's house. I will expose their illicit affair, their corruption of the Pei family. They deserve no forgiveness. Hearing the sounds of men and women bantering from the side room, I knew I had been rebirth. In my past life, I trembled with rage and kicked open the door. Pei Heng was pinning Sumioren beneath him, his brocade robe pulled down to his waist. Seeing me, his face turned grim. Sumioren even shrieked and hid in his arms. I am going to expose you. Just as I turned, my hand was firmly grasped. Pei Heng forced my mouth open, stuffed a pill inside, and said menacingly, "Dare to speak out, and you'll die." Thinking of my own face bleeding from 7 orifices, I shivered. Pei Heng has poison. I can't confront him head on. Then, as long as I find someone to come and expose the 2's ugly affair, everything can be made public. Ordinary maids and servants won't work. The matter would be suppressed, and they might even be framed in return. My parents-in-law won't do. It is inevitable they would be selfish and choose to cover it up. It must be someone in the Pia residence with a very high status, and who is impartial. Almost in an instant, I already had a person in mind. Eldest brother. I clenched my fists, lifted my skirt, and turned to rush towards the south courtyard. To my surprise, just as I ran past the corridor, a rough hand gripped my arm firmly. "My lady, where are you going?" I looked up. It was Pei Heng's page boy, a Louis. Forced myself to stay calm. "Mother-in-law said she is terribly dizzy. I am going to check on her." "The night is late, my lady. It would be better if you went tomorrow." I abruptly raised my eyes, my expression displeased. "Do I still have to listen to your arrangements for whatever I do?" His hand loosened a little. My eyes lit up, and but an ice-cold voice came from behind. "What is all the noise?" I froze, watching the young servant quickly walk to Pei Heng's side and mutter a few words in a low voice. Pei Heng's brows were tightly furrowed, his dark eyes staring grimly at me. At this hour, Mother has long since gone to rest. "Don't go bother her. Come back to the room with me." I refused, but he suddenly strode forward and was in front of me in just a few steps. She grasped my hand, and without allowing any argument, yanked me back. And at the corner of the long corridor, a slender figure was sticking close to the wall, tiptoeing out. It was Sumioren, who had just come out of the room. The man before her seemed completely unaware, his steps not faltering, but her tense body probably knew everything already. I lowered my gaze, concealing the gloom in my eyes. The next day, Pei Heng and I went together to pay our respects to my mother-in-law. As it was time for breakfast, my mother-in-law kept us to dine together. Yuan, you've been married for 3 years now. The Pei family's lineage is sparse. It is time to expand the family tree." My mother-in-law put a piece of food into my bowl with her chopsticks, her tone gentle but unyielding. The main branch of the Pei family had only 4 children. Besides the eldest brother, who was the eldest, only Pei Heng was in the capital. The other 2 were outside managing businesses and rarely returned all year round. And among the grandchildren, not a single one had arrived yet. No wonder my mother-in-law was anxious. It is just that having this child isn't something I can just decide to do. My fingertips trembled slightly, and I unconsciously looked at Pei Heng. He was lowering his head, drinking his congee, his expression unchanged, as if these words had nothing to do with him. The chill in my heart deepened. Sumioren's retreating figure from last night was still vivid in my mind. Of course, he didn't have time to put on a show of a harmonious couple with me. I slowly raised my eyes and said softly, "This daughter-in-law will certainly do her utmost to live up to mother-in-law's expectations." These words coaxed the mother-in-law into a beaming smile. So Sumioren was a bit awkward as soon as she entered. "I am sorry, mother-in-law, I am late." She secretly glanced at Pei-heng, the happiness in her eyes and brows impossible to hide. "Last night, Yanji came back late and left this morning before dawn." I lost track of time for a moment, and despite rushing, I was still late. The old madam didn't blame her, pulling her to sit by her side. This way, Pei-heng and Sumioren were directly facing each other. He didn't take a single bite of the food I had picked out for him. Instead, he served a few pieces of dongpo pork onto a small plate and seemingly casually placed it next to Sumioren's bowl. She said in a low voice, "Thank you, ahung." Then she moved the dongpo pork into her own bowl. Although Pei-heng didn't respond, his ears quietly turned red, watching the subtle flirtation between them. My heart felt heavy. Bang! I slammed my chopsticks down on the table. "Husband, didn't Big Brother tell you to sort out the cargo manifest for the 13 prefectures? You should hurry and take it to him. Such an important matter cannot be delayed." Pei-heng's face darkened. His hand gripping the soup spoon tightened imperceptibly. "It is fine if it is a bit later." "Fine." I stood up, my tone urgent. "You stayed up all night checking that manifest. You'd better deliver it while Big Brother hasn't gone far. Besides, the firm said they won't release the payment until it is signed. If we're late, I am afraid another company will beat us to it." These words successfully made my mother-in-law's face change. She tightly gripped Pei-heng's sleeve. "The Pei family's livelihood is what is important." Pei-heng took a deep breath and shot me a vicious glare. Then he turned to look at Sumioren, his expression complex and unreadable. "Mother, sister-in-law, I'll take my leave first." I watched him flick his sleeves and rise, his footsteps heavy. I couldn't hide the smile at the corner of my mouth. After breakfast, Sumioren and I returned to our rooms together. My face was impassive, but my mind was busy scheming. Right now, there is no solid proof of their affair, so I can't make my case to Big Brother. Unless I find their love token. Just as I was lost in thought, sister-in-law suddenly grabbed my hand. "Younger sister-in-law, in a few days there is a big show at the theater. Do you want to go see it together?" I was about to answer when I glimpsed the bracelet on her wrist, and the more I looked, the more familiar it seemed. "Sister-in-law, this bracelet is so beautiful. It is from Jiangyan, isn't it?" Sumioren raised her hand, feigning surprise. "Younger sister-in-law, you have a good eye." She took it off for me to have a clearer look. On the bracelet, a small character Yuan was engraved. If you didn't look closely, you wouldn't notice it at all. This was a gift my parents had specially commissioned for me from Jiangnan when I got married. It came with me to the PI family as part of my dowry. Fourth brother gave it to me a few days ago. He said it wasn't worth much and that I should just wear it for fun. After Sumioren finished speaking, she raised her hand to take it back, chiding. I heard it has a calming effect too. My fourth brother-in-law is much more thoughtful towards me. His eldest sister-in-law, unlike mine. I stepped back, avoiding her hand. "I really like this bracelet. Could you lend it to me to play with for a couple of days, sister-in-law?" After saying that, I ignored her reaction and headed straight for the dressing cabinet room with the bracelet. 18 rosewood chests were violently thrown open, and they were empty. Mother's pearl hairpins, kingfisher feather hair ornaments, and ruby gold hairpins specially prepared for me had all vanished. These were once my dignity as the legitimate daughter, dowry obtained with half the family fortune. Now they've become a tool for Pei-heng to please his eldest sister-in-law. I was so angry my eyes turned red, and I grabbed the empty chests to find Pei-heng. "Where did you take my dowry?" Pei-heng was writing something, not even looking up. Just some jewelry. I gave it to eldest sister, in-law. That is my dowry. You just took it and gave it away without even asking me. Pei Heng finally looked up, full of impatience. Shen Jiayuan, why are you so stingy? Eldest brother just took over his position. He needs support right now. Besides, if I give eldest sister, in-law, a little something, she might put in a good word for me with eldest brother when she is cozying up to him, helping me get a higher position. What is there to be unhappy about? What is there to be unhappy about? I laughed. He said the same thing in my past life. He played the part of the perfect husband outside, leaving all domestic affairs to me, giving me plenty of face. According to him, I was ungrateful. Perhaps it was because I looked too miserable. He paused, his tone filled with an impatience as if bestowing a favor. All right, stop being crazy. Later, pick 2 more valuable items and send them to sister, in-law, lest people think you are insensible and ruin my future prospects. I stared at him stubbornly. Word by word, my dowry. On what grounds should I give it to her? Besides, are you really doing this for your future prospects? The moment the words left my mouth, a loud slap landed on my face. Pei Heng's face darkened, his eyes vicious. Are you done making a scene? I gritted my teeth, forcing back my tears. I knew to quit while I was ahead. Let's make an exchange. You touched my dowry, so you must compensate me with those few rare single-copy books by famous masters from your study. He waved his hand impatiently. Take them and don't bother me. The moment I walked out the door, of course Pei Heng wouldn't notice, the gleam of light hidden deep in my eyes. The moment I stepped into the study, my heart pounded wildly. In the past, Pei Heng never allowed me to enter his study, because this place hid too many secrets between him and Sumieren. And I was looking for a crescent-shaped jade pendant. This was their token of love. I fumbled along the wall and felt a raised spot. In just a few tries, the hidden compartment under the bookshelf opened. In my last life, I gave the jade pendant to my mother, in-law. Who knew that to cover for the 2 of them, she insisted that this jade pendant was a gift from her, one for the 1st branch and one for the 4th branch. When Pei Heng found out about this, he hung me up in the room for 3 days and 3 nights. He even threatened me with poison, forcing me to be a maid to serve them both in bed, called for water many times in one night. It is just that the temperature was a bit cooler. Pei Heng then cut off my medicine to let me die when the poison acted up. I gripped the jade pendant tightly, my fingertips ceaselessly rubbing the character, Su on it. As hatred surged within me, a painting scroll slipped out from the crack of the drawer. The woman in the painting had gentle and graceful features. It was none other than Su Miren. At the end, a line of small characters was also inscribed. To my beloved Lady Su, personally written by Pei Heng. Madam, have you found Mr. Liu's scroll? Liu's footsteps suddenly came from outside the door, getting closer and closer. I froze all over, frantically stuffing the picture scroll into the drawer and shoving the jade pendant into my sleeve. After doing all this, I lifted my head. Liu was standing right in front of me. I found it. Clutching the book scroll in my arms, I tried to walk outside. Wait. A pale, weathered hand blocked my chest. The young master's things are valuable and easily lost. I have to take a look. With that, he pulled open the drawer. My heart leaped into my throat. Liu glanced at the jade pendant lying quietly inside, then closed it. His tone softened a bit. It is good that you found it. We shouldn't stay here long. Let's leave quickly. I let out a huge sigh of relief. Luckily, I stayed up all night to forge a replica. I was just a step away from meeting a tragic end again. I silently followed behind Liu, looking at his figure. My expression changed slightly. Now that I have the jade pendant, the next step is to expose them. But Big Brother is, after all, Sumieren's official husband, although the 2 of them have never been on good terms. What if Big Brother has some kind of cuckold fetish? My heart sank. It is safer to test the waters a bit. Soon enough, an opportunity came. Half a month later, the Pei family secured the business in Zhongyan. My mother-in-law specially found an opera troupe to perform at the manor to liven things up. That night, the aroma of wine and meat filled the main hall, and the clansmen were toasting each other. Big Brother sat upright in the main seat, his expression unreadable. I got up and first ladled a bowl of chicken soup for my mother-in-law. Then I looked towards Big Brother. Big Brother, this venison is stewed until it is soft and tender. You should try some. After speaking, I looked at Sumioren and Pei Heng and said coquettishly, speaking of which, this was sister-in-law's idea. She only mentioned it once, and a Heng took it to heart, specially finding this wild deer. As soon as I finished speaking, Pei Yanji's hand that was holding the chopsticks paused, and the piece of venison splashed into the bowl. The splashing broth dirtied his brocade robe, but he didn't seem to notice at all. He just looked up at Sumioren, his brows furrowed slightly. How thoughtful, my heart stirred. I knew Pei Yanji seemed to have noticed something. Just as I was about to speak, I heard Pei Heng say, "It is just an ordinary wild deer. Why bother mentioning it, as if you are deliberately putting on a show for Big Brother?" He looked displeased, and the look he gave me was unfriendly. The atmosphere was tense, and I didn't know whether to sit or stand. A Heng sister-in-law also meant well. Sumioren looked softly at Pei Heng, a hint of blame in her eyes. The tips of Pei Heng's ears instantly turned beet red. I'll listen to whatever sister-in-law says. This scene was clearly the ambiguity of a man and a woman mutually interested in each other. But in everyone's eyes, although there were whispers, no one dared to point it out openly. I inadvertently glanced towards Pei Yanji. His sharp gaze swept over the two of them, his lips pressed into a thin line. Then he coughed heavily twice. Instantly, the whispering in the main hall disappeared. Mother-in-law also seemed to have sensed something, and after 2 bites, she said she wasn't feeling well. Sumioren was the closest. She supported mother-in-law and said she would walk her back to her room. Pei Yanji nodded in agreement. Not long after the two left, Pei Heng, who had been fidgeting in his seat, finally couldn't hold back. Big Brother, I am very worried about Mother. I am afraid something might happen. How about? Pei Yanji's gaze swept over him twice, and he said in a deep voice, "Go ahead." Watching Pei Heng desperately trying to hold back a smile, he hurriedly chased out. It was obvious who he was going to see. I sneered. Those two really can't wait. Then I stood up and gave a bow. In that case, then I will also. You stay. I looked up abruptly, only to see the corners of his mouth slightly curved up. I followed behind Pei Yanji, walking silently. He said he had prepared some trinkets for Pei Heng and left them in the study. Since he had just left, he asked me to take them back for him. Pei Yanji's study was different from Pei Heng's. If the latter's was a place of leisure filled with picture books about eating, drinking, and merrymaking, then Pei Yanji's study was orderly and solemn, exclusively filled with business books and literary classics. As soon as we came in, Pei Yanji carefully shut the door, ensuring no one could eavesdrop. How much do you know about their affair? I couldn't see Pei Yanji's expression clearly, and I dared not make any rash moves at this moment. Big Brother, I don't quite understand what you mean. He chuckled lightly. If you keep playing dumb, this opportunity won't come again. Seeing his serious look, I didn't dare to test him any further. I immediately took out the crescent-shaped jade pendant from my clothes. Yuan begs for Big Brother's help. Pei Yanji took the jade pendant from my hand and examined it carefully. Indeed, this belongs to Miao Ren. My heart leaped with joy, and I was just about to say something. He then changed the subject, secretly thinking what a pity. But if I help you, what is in it for me? What is in it for you? I stared at him doubtfully, wondering if he really had some kind of cuckold fetish. Perhaps my stare was too blunt, as he picked up his folding fan and tapped me on the head. Looking at you, it seems you want to leave the Pei family after divorcing fourth brother. When the time comes, you'll just pat your ass and walk away. But once their affair is exposed, the Pei family will be at the center of the storm, which would be quite a blow to my business. How will you compensate me? How will I compensate you? I laughed out of anger. This guy's probably got nothing but money on his mind. All he sees is his business. I said irritably. The face of the Pei family's eldest brother is worth millions. If you don't help, I'll hire a bunch of people to shout "cuckold turtle" at you in the city. That way you'll lose your millions ahead of time. Isn't this just mutual destruction? Bring it on. Pei Yanji's face darkened, and a low chuckle escaped from between his teeth. So, you've learned to threaten people now. But I am not that easy to fool. He took out paper and a brush, telling me to sign and put my fingerprint on it. On the white paper, it was boldly written, "If this is accomplished, Shen Jaiwan will unconditionally grant Pei Yanji one wish." When I walked out of the study, my head was still dizzy. I was coaxed and tricked into signing that IOU swindler. It is no use regretting it now. I'll just take it one step at a time. I returned to my room, frustrated, and found that Pei Heng had also just gotten back. His clothes were a bit disheveled, and there were still traces of lip rouge on his mouth. Won't look, and you could tell he had just been in a lover's arms, seeing that I was ignoring him. He uncharacteristically asked, "Where did you go? Why are you back so late?" I spread the scrolls I was carrying onto the desk. "Big brother said he brought some things for you, and asked me to bring them back on my way." He nodded. Yuan. It was the first time Pei Heng had called my name so gently. I got goosebumps all over and looked up in surprise. His lips were pressed into a thin line, and he seemed a little hesitant. "In a few days, I am going to Jiangnan with Big Brother. You are healthy, so I am not worried. But sister, in-law is weak and sickly. When you have time, go look after her a bit." As if afraid I would read too much into it, he took my hand. "We're a family, after all. It is only natural that we help each other." I suppressed the discomfort in my heart and forced a smile. "Husband, what kind of person do you think Yuan is? If sister-in-law is unwell, of course I will take good care of her. Besides," I pointed at the pile of scrolls and said righteously, "eldest brother has been very good to our fourth branch. We can't do anything to let him down." "You'll be condemned by the heavens for that." Pei Heng paused for a moment, but his expression looked a bit unpleasant. "I am relieved that you think this way." After saying that, I helped him pack his luggage for the journey. He sat by the windowsill, spacing out. He suddenly asked, "The journey is bound to be tiring. How about letting Alu go with you?" "No need, I can manage by myself." I lowered my head to hide the sly glint in my eyes. "Alu's not going. Huh, that is really perfect." The day I saw Pei Heng off, Sumiaren was also there. He reached out to take the luggage from me, but his eyes were fixed on Sumiaren. "Husband? Husband." Pei Heng came to his senses. "Have you remembered the things I told you?" He nodded sullenly. It was because Sumiaren was affectionately giving Pei Yan a kiss on the face. I clutched Pei Heng's sleeve and said chidingly, "Eldest brother and sister, in-law have such a good relationship. I heard they promised mother-in-law they'd have a child this year. It is truly enviable." Almost in an instant, I felt a weight on my arm. Pei Heng was staring at me intently, the anger in his eyes plain to see. "Is what you said true?" I suppressed the secret joy in my heart and pointed at Pei Yanji. "Of course, ask Big Brother if you don't believe me." In the end, Pei Heng left with a gloomy face. I looked at Alu, who was guarding by my side, and raised my eyelids. "I recall Big Brother once sent some scrolls. Go fetch them." Alu lowered his head slightly and left in response. These scrolls were mostly about strange tales and anecdotes, which could be used to pass the time. When I flipped to a book about spices, I widened my eyes. "Alu, come take a look." I pointed to a spot in the book and said, "What kind of incense is this?" He leaned closer to look. "Madam, it is a bewitching incense." I nodded. No wonder it looks unfamiliar. "Speaking of which, I haven't been sleeping well these past few days. Since this incense can bewitch the soul, I imagine it's sleep. Aiding effects are also good. Go find some. His expression changed in an instant. Madam, this incense is mostly used for malicious purposes. If you use it, I fear it will harm your body. The smile on my face faded, and my voice turned a few degrees colder. If it is effective, it is good incense. Now that a hang is gone, what, can I not even order you around anymore? Seeing him still hesitating and not moving, I lifted my chin. You are Pei Heng's man. I can't do anything to you, but you've defied my orders time and again, which means you don't respect me. I remember your mother also works in the manor, right? It seems I'll have to have a few words with my mother, in-law, and charge her with the crime of failing to raise her son properly. Alu's body stiffened. He gritted his teeth, and finally lowered his head. This servant will go right away. Watching his retreating figure, I smiled. What a loyal servant, so protective of his master. I just wonder how much longer this loyalty can last. Since Pei Heng left, I've sent someone to bring Sumia-ren some nourishing supplements every day. The more of these supplements one eats, the sleepier one gets. So I picked out a few soft pillows to bring over. Alu has been very obedient these past few days, proactively picking up the pillows and following behind me. When we arrived at Sumia-ren's courtyard, I instructed him to wait at the entrance. I stepped inside myself. Sumia-ren was lying on the daybed, while a maid fed her the supplements spoonful by spoonful. I took the jade bowl from the maid's hands and fed her with my own hands. Sister-in-law, how have you been lately? She nodded. Yanji sent someone back with many things. Go see if there is anything you like, and just take it. She pointed to a pile of things in the corner. It was a jumbled mess, mostly things that children would like. Knowing Pei-Enji's personality, he isn't the type to send these kinds of gifts, unless these were from Pei Heng. Her plan is probably for me to take them, so she can deliberately tell Pei Heng that I snatched them away. My eyes darkened, but I pretended not to know what she was scheming. Sister-in-law, eldest brother is so good to you. I used to always talk about how badly Pei Heng treated me, and Sumia-ren wouldn't show it on her face. But in her heart, she was secretly comparing my experiences with hers. As soon as she heard that Pei Heng was always different towards her, she would get smug while persuading me that all men are like this, and that I should learn to be tolerant. So the moment she heard I was having a hard time, her eyes lit up, and she looked at me with an expectant expression. What did he do? Girls from several families are interested in a Heng, always using some excuse to get close to him. Sumia-ren sighed. I don't know if she was saying it to me or to herself. A Heng is handsome, so it is normal for girls to like him. I shook my head. What I am angry about is that a Heng didn't refuse them, accepted scented sachets from many girls, and vaguely mentioned to me the idea of taking a concubine. As soon as I said that, Sumia-ren could no longer keep up her pretense. How could this be? I watched as her face turned deathly pale. The rims of her eyes became red, and her lips were pressed tightly together. This time, it was surprisingly me who was consoling her. You know, it is all my fault for not being able to bear a child. If he really has someone he likes, I'll bring them in for him, even if there are 7 or 8 of them. After all, having an heir is what is most important. Sumia-ren was so angry she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The tonic she had been drinking for days had filled her nasal passages with a lot of fresh blood. I turned pale with shock. Sister-in-law, what is wrong with you? Don't be scared. I'll go get a doctor right now. Alu had been waiting outside the door for a long time, and suddenly heard these 2 sentences. He paced back and forth non-stop, worried that Sumia-ren would be harmed. But he listened carefully, yet there was no sound at all. Could it be? His first thought was bewitching incense. Suddenly, he felt his whole body heating up, and his mind grew a bit foggy. Without realizing it, he pushed open the door to the room. Inside was only Sumia-ren, lying quietly on the couch. Bed, He relaxed a little, thinking he would just take one more look and then leave. As if possessed, he touched Sumioren's wrist. Bang, the main door opened, and I stepped inside with the doctor. Alu, what is the punishment for disrespecting the madam? I ordered my men to drag him to the courtyard and douse him with a basin of cold water. Only then did he seem to sober up. He had always been smart, and was the best at weighing pros and cons. It wasn't hard to guess that the soft pillow had been tampered with, but it happened so suddenly that pointing fingers was already useless. In just a few minutes, he was trembling like a leaf, kowtowing and repeatedly begging for mercy. I beg you, madam, spare this lowly one's life. I sighed, looking down on him. The one you've offended this time is your eldest sister, in-law. Neither my husband nor your eldest brother will let you off the hook. What is the use in begging me? He was stunned for a moment, then realized I was negotiating terms, so he gritted his teeth. If you spare this lowly one's life, this lowly one swears to follow you to the death, madam. If there is betrayal, may this lowly one live a life worse than death. Little did I know, I was still not satisfied. So many people witnessed this today. If I have to smooth things over with each one, it will take quite a bit of effort. Moreover, you've been loyal to my husband for many years. Isn't it only right to make you live a life worse than death? It is just that I am in a pitiable state, with absolutely no security, unless— He was smart and immediately understood my implied meaning, so he closed his eyes and said in a muffled voice, "If I betray you, then may my mother live a life worse than death." I smiled with satisfaction and crouched down to help him up. Let today's incident be as if it never happened. But if you dare to deceive me— I leaned close to his ear, my voice lowered to a whisper. I still have a backup plan. Alu's expression was a mix of many things, but definitely not good. I walked lightly into the courtyard. Pei Heng Sumioren, it is finally your turn. With Alu's help, I quickly found evidence of Pei Heng and Sumioren's illicit affair. From paintings, jade pendants, and even ledgers showing Pei Heng embezzling family money to buy private property for Sumioren. I suppressed the anger in my heart and carefully secured these pieces of evidence. Alu entered at this moment, respectfully bowing to me. "Madam, I have something important to report." I stroked my brow and asked softly, "You want to say that Pei Heng returned early, right?" Alu's eyes opened slightly. I chuckled lightly. It wasn't hard to guess. Really, these days, Sumioren's mental state has clearly improved a lot. She is practically radiating the aura of a happy young woman. A little inquiry would reveal she has been frequenting an inn at the foot of the mountain lately, and Alu has always been the one keeping watch when the two of them were intimate. Did my husband say when he'd be back? Alu bowed slightly. In 7 days. 7 days, I nodded with a smile. I instructed him to serve as usual and not to alert them. By the time I saw Sumioren sneaking out of the manor again, I picked up the letter Pei Yanji had sent and ran to find my mother-in-law. It said they had closed a big deal in Jiangnan and were returning earlier the day before yesterday. Figuring the dates, they'd reach the foot of Moonfall Mountain tonight. Such good news. We must go to welcome them. My voice carried just the right amount of joy, and my mother-in-law's eyes lit up. Is it true? I nodded and struck while the iron was hot. I heard they gained it through immense effort. Your daughter-in-law thinks it is the perfect time to boost the family's reputation. Why don't we invite a few relatives and make it grand? We can also host a banquet at home to welcome Big Brother and the others back, with a lively celebration. My mother-in-law readily agreed, saying, "Good, 3 times in a row. Hurry, get the carriage ready. We're leaving now." Just as she turned, she reminded me, "Don't forget about your sister-in-law." I linked my arm through hers. "Mother-in-law, eldest sister-in-law missed you terribly, so she went out early this morning. Otherwise, why would I be the one delivering this letter?" By the time the large procession arrived at the foot of Moonset Mountain, Alu was at the entrance, dutifully keeping watch. Seeing me, he made a hand gesture, then put on a panicked expression. This was the secret signal I taught him, meaning everything was going smoothly. I strode up to him, feigning confusion. "Ah, Lou, what are you doing here? Has my husband returned already?" The clansman's gazes turned over, and my mother-in-law's anticipation was even more obvious. Ah, Lou trembled non-stop. "Madam, the young master, is resting inside." I sneered and started walking inside. "The clansmen are all here, yet he is hiding inside. How can he be so discourteous?" The sound of my footsteps, heavy then light, was just like my constantly beating heart. Alu had told me which room was Pei Heng's early on, so in just a moment, I was standing at the door. The sound of two people laughing playfully came from inside. "Ah Heng, your wife even said your heart belonged to another, and you were thinking of taking a concubine. I knew you weren't that kind of heartless and ungrateful person. How can you believe her words? In a few days, I'll divorce her on the grounds of being unable to bear an heir, not only making her a laughingstock to all, but also making it so she can't even return to her own family's home." My hand on the door was trembling violently. The next second, I kicked the wooden door open. "Pei Heng, you are still so disgusting." The scene in the room was unbearable to look at. Pei Heng was holding Sumyoren, their clothes in disarray. Then, he frantically covered Sumyoren's body. After seeing clearly that it was me, the flush on his face faded, replaced by a towering rage. "Shen Jiayuan, you've chased me all the way here, haven't you? You really can't stand being lonely," I sneered. "So, what is this whole act? How are you going to explain this to me? And how are you going to explain it to Big Brother?" Pei Heng's face was full of disdain. "Big Brother isn't even here. What is there to explain to you? The husband is the wife's guide. I advise you to swallow today's matter deep down, or else." A vicious glint flashed in his eyes. I laughed. "A good for nothing like him who has nothing but his family background. What else can he do besides feeding me poison to threaten me? Since you have no shame before Big Brother, and no shame before me." I chuckled. "Then what about mother-in-law? How will you explain it to the clansmen?" The next second, mother-in-law and the clansmen outside the door swarmed in. Sumyoren was so scared she trembled all over, grabbing her clothes to cover her face. The sharp gazes made Pei Heng blush to his ears. He pointed his finger at me. "You bitch, you deliberately plotted to frame me." Then he threw himself at mother-in-law, crying his eyes out. "Mom, it was all her doing. You have to believe me. Our affair, didn't you know about it from the start?" Slap. Mother-in-law gave Pei Heng a heavy slap across the face. "What nonsense are you talking?" I watched this mother and son with cold eyes. How ridiculous. Everything from my past life now had an explanation. I just wonder, under the watchful eyes of everyone, under the scrutinizing gazes of all the clan relatives, how my mother-in-law would still favor Pei Heng. A clan relative near me really couldn't stand it anymore, pointing at Pei Heng's nose and cursing. "Yuan Yuan kindly wanted to celebrate for you. She specially invited us to come, and even prepared a banquet at home. How would she have known you came back early and did such a disgraceful thing? You are truly something worse than a pig or a dog." Pei Heng's eyes turned red, feeling utterly disgraced. He just glared at me fiercely. "It is all because of you. I am going to kill you." The next second, he grabbed the scissors from the table and lunged at me. I heard the frightened cries of the people around me, and also Pei Heng's pleas for mercy as he was restrained by their combined efforts. Watching the person in front of me, who once valued money as much as his life, block the sharp weapon for me with his bare hands. The fresh blood stung my eyes red. Why? The young man in front of me was pale, but he still chuckled lightly. "You still owe me a wish. You can't just die so easily." The incident with Pei Heng caused a huge uproar. The clan decided to expel the two of them from the family registry. Correspondingly, I also received a letter of divorce and a generous compensation. Included in it was all the dowry I had lost. I looked at Alu. I want to see Big Brother. His usually calm face showed a hint of awkwardness. I am afraid that is not possible. According to him, Big Brother is dealing with the Pei family's public reputation, and also the engagement with Sumia Ren. There is no time right now, and what was shocking was Sumia Ren actually truly liked Pei Yanji. The Su and Pei families had arranged a marriage for them since they were children, and Sumia Ren only loved Pei Yanji. So, after she came of age, she chose him as her husband. This person, Pei Yanji, only loves money and has no interest in matters of love. So Sumia Ren hardly ever got to see him, left to guard an empty room for a long time. Unlike these two, Pei Heng had liked Sumia Ren ever since he was a child. After seeing his eldest brother and sister-in-law on bad terms, he started finding all sorts of ways to make Sumia Ren happy. Sumia Ren looked at this face, so similar to her husband's. It wasn't long before she fell for him, and at this time, it was precisely when the old madam was choosing a wife for her fourth son, Pei Heng. Pei Heng refused to cooperate, ruining many marriage prospects. The old madam then used the fact that she knew we had an illicit affair to force Pei Heng to marry me. In her words, it was all about keeping up appearances. The Pei family's reputation is the most important thing. From Pei Yanji's courtyard came Sumia Ren's heart. Wrenching screams. You didn't need to guess to know she didn't want to divorce Pei Yanji. She was in the middle of crying, making a scene, and threatening to hang herself. It is indeed quite a headache. I was silent for a moment, and picked up all my luggage. I took one last look at the Pei residence, and left this place without any lingering feelings. It has been 3 years since I left the Pei family, after the Pei family expelled the two from the family registry. I then reported them to the authorities on the charge of attempted assault, making Pei Heng stay in jail for 2 years. I heard Sumia Ren's situation wasn't good either. She refused to sign the divorce agreement, so Pei Yanji served her with divorce papers. She was sent back to the SU family. Her parents from the SU family were constantly gossiped about because of her scandal, and their business plummeted. Later, they hardened their hearts and drowned her in a pond. Carrying a bag of steamed buns, I walked to the street corner. The children there were familiar with me and asked enthusiastically, "Sister Yuan Yuan, what goodies did you bring today?" White flour steamed buns. The child smiled excitedly and pointed at a person in ragged clothes, saying, "Just you watch. I've recently learned a new move. I'll definitely beat him until he is looking for his teeth on the ground." As soon as he finished speaking, a bunch of children surrounded the man. The person in the middle had a fierce look in his eyes, and his endurance was excellent. If he hadn't lost both his arms, he would definitely have fought back. After a while, the children got tired of hitting him and came to me one by one to get their steamed buns. I wiped the sweat from their foreheads and told them to go play to the side. Then I calmly looked at the man on the ground who was begging me for food. It was Pei Heng. "You come here every day to humiliate me. Don't you just want to see me wag my tail and beg for scraps like a dog?" I smiled and threw the steamed bun on the ground. "Wrong, this is a blessing. With your reputation, you'd be beaten to death as soon as you got out of jail. I am the one who gave you a chance to live. All you have to do is get beaten to get food. You need to learn to be content." Pei Heng let out a cold laugh and glared at me. "Sometimes I really want to know, why do you hate me so much? Perhaps it was in a past life. Is that so?" He laughed, a deranged laugh. "Then, in that past life, I must have gone easy on you, allowing you to reincarnate." I wasn't angry, just looked at him calmly, nodded, sighed unintentionally. "It is just a pity that you could have such good luck now." Unlike Sumia Ren, his eyes lit up, looking at me eagerly, dragging his body over. "What happened to her?" On his horrified face, I gently spat out a few words. "Because of you, the family was disgraced, and they made her drown. I didn't go back to my own home. After wandering for another year, I got a bit tired of it, so I went into a money shop. Shopkeeper, withdraw another 200 silver. The shopkeeper didn't even look up, just flipped through the ledger in his hands. Your account is empty, and you owe the money shop 300. I laughed. Then what should we do? The shopkeeper put down the ledger, stroking his chin. I know a gig, 100 taels of silver a month. Which family? The Pei family of Chongzhou. The young master's room still needs a maid to serve tea and water. I stared carefully at this familiar face and said seriously, Pei Yanji, I am not doing it. Saying that, I turned to leave. Hold on. A hand blocked my path. Shen Jiayuan, the favor of my assistance and the favor of saving your life. You have to repay one of them, right?